Hey, welcome back to the Phoenix Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika and this is my very sought-after co-host, Stephen Brittney Griner. How are we today?
Blessed as always, and blessed in the literal sense, but also with the way that the Mercury have seemingly turned the corner. I would like to humbly brag if anyone truly listened to the words that we've been speaking into the viewers' energy about the team, and just making sure that it was understood that the team would look completely different with any capacity of Brittney Griner on the floor. I like to say we kind of told you, and we told you, and we told you, and we told you again, and we finally got an opportunity to see just how well our words stacked up with what was to actually come when Miss Brittney Griner returned to the floor. And needless to say, both with results and with her impact on the game, I would say we were more than correct. What would be your assessment of that, Erika?
Well, I see a comment that Chantel just left about leaving or turning the game off on Friday 3 minutes early against the Lynx. And listen, I actually can relate because I started packing my stuff up. I started walking toward the floor and actually, thank goodness I did that because I got a pretty funny video. And if you haven't seen it on the PHNX Mercury Twitter account, you're honestly missing out because it's pretty hilarious if I do say so myself. No, I was also sure that the Lynx were going to win. They have really good coaching, and in the crunch time, they play pretty well. And the Mercury just wanted to prove Erika incorrect, and thank God that they did. It was pretty exciting. I don't think we could have asked for a more exciting ending than that game on Friday. And then yesterday, I don't ever love free basketball when it involves my team. I'm going to be honest. But at the same time, I mean, how can I complain about getting to watch, Kahleah Copper put the stompage on him for 40 minutes or for 50 minutes instead of 40 minutes, right?
Exactly. That was a lot of basketball. Even Kai had to go to Twitter after the game and say two overtimes is insane. Like, yes, it is literally insane. That's a lot. Anybody that was in attendance for that game is definitely a trooper.
Yeah. I'm like, I am kind of glad this wasn't in the Footprint Center. You know what I mean? I don't want the X Factor to get bored and start leaving. Not that they really do that, and Amanda is right. It was absolutely the loudest I've heard it. And there were 1,000 less people than there were the weekend before in Phoenix. So I just want to give a shout out to the 9,052 fans there on Friday. It was insane in there. And so I'm really looking forward to what it's like come this Thursday when the Phoenix Mercury host the Aces. I think all I'm going to say is X Factor needs to step out.
That's it. How you have to show up for this team in general. All of the energy behind the way this team was built, the pieces, the figures that are literally a part of the team, the gravity that comes with those players, the excitement that those players play with and that they engage the crowd with. Independent of the opponent, you got to show up with your energy for this team and kind of let it play off of each other. And then in addition to that, who they're going up against, you have to show up, like you said. I think you really can't say it any better than that.
Well, as excited I am to kind of relive what happened this weekend, I do think we have some news that very quickly needs to be addressed. And Shane, listen, I need you to timestamp this because we're cutting me off at a certain point, okay? I've been texting Stephen this all day. I can go all day on the Olympic roster, but I just have a few words to start with. First and foremost, Diana Taurasi, 6th Olympics. Argue with a wall about it. Listen, she is the greatest player of all time. And again, not to reiterate myself, but argue with the wall about that one in particular. I feel as though a lot of the public discourse around this one is like, oh, she's just she's getting the, what's the word I'm looking for, where she doesn't really deserve it, and I just, when you look at Diana's stats, she turns 42, by the way, in case you didn't know this, tomorrow. And she is tied with Michael Jordan's for the most wins, or for the most 20 plus point games after 40. Like, when you look at her accolades, she deserves to be on this team. And she deserves to have that opportunity to fight for the 6th gold medal.
I mean, talk about six. That is
Where's
correct.
5,
Correct.
5?
Correct. That is a bevy. That is a ton. That is abundance. That is a lot of winning. There's a certain level of experience that you just have to have when it comes to international play, because it's a competitive disadvantage for the W that they're in season when the Olympics are happening. But so because of that, other teams are playing. Like, other teams, while all of these other players for Team USA are practicing and playing with their respective teams, other teams are just practicing with each other. They might be scrimmaging other teams, but they're getting chemistry built up pretty much in, like, literally year round, unless they have a player that's over in the W. But that might be 1 or 2 or 3 players for most teams. Everybody else on that roster is going to be practicing, building continuity, hammering home their system and principles. A lot of competitive disadvantages for Team USA. One of the main reasons why Diana is still with the team, one, that experience is one way to kind of make up the gap in continuity and chemistry that you have against other teams. She's as she's just not a stranger to international basketball in any capacity.
And she's also second to no one in leadership. Like, when you even watch how she's kind of led this Phoenix Mercury team over the last month and a half without Brittney Griner, I mean, she has been the leader of this team emotionally, figuratively, physically. I mean, she leads this team. And so when you look at that, there is just, and then on the top of it, there's 2 other Mercury members on the roster, supposedly. I just think it makes so much sense to have her continue what she's started with Team USA.
Yes. And I mean, you can never have enough shooters, and she's quite literally the best 3-point shooter to ever touch a basketball in WNBA history. When you have all of the talents and the gravity that comes with having so many talents that garner the attention of multiple defenders, the best way to complement those things, even if she's not doing things off the dribble as she did in seasons past, is to have somebody that you can rely on to knock down a shot. In addition to that, things get tight. We saw how things went in the FIBA tournament and the qualifying tournaments, all of that stuff. Those games were a lot closer than Team USA is used to those games being. That speaks to the level of competition starting to neutralize a little bit more across the world in women's basketball. Games get tight. You have to have a few sets of hands that you are sure is going to be able to execute whatever it is you're doing, whether it's scripted or whether it's in chaos. One thing that Diana Taurasi can do is knock down shots when it's scripted. One thing that she can also do is make things happen out of nothing. And you see the shot making ability, the timeliness of her plays that she makes. That's something that you just can't put a value on. And when it comes with all of the experience that she has in the leadership, like you said, on a global stage, she's second to none with anyone else that's playing in Olympic basketball at this point.
Absolutely. And so, kind of moving on from Diana, we all kind of knew that one was coming. Obviously, Brittney Griner also is expected to make her 3rd Olympic team appearance, which is super exciting. But then we also have another Phoenix Mercury member who is making her very first, well, again, rumored to be making her very first Olympic team debut, and that is Miss Kahleah Copper. And listen, we have a lot to talk about with Kahleah Copper today, but I cannot express to you the pride and joy I feel for her getting this selection, and this is kind of, I was really excited to get to this part of the roster talk because Kahleah Copper is actually a prime example of why these rookies are going to benefit and from not going to the Olympics. Look at the work that Kahleah Copper has had to put in over these last 8 years to get to the point of where she is now and be that closer for the Phoenix Mercury. And just like Stephen just said, when you're playing against teams, that are on the same skill level as you need multiple closers, and Team USA selecting Kahleah Copper gives them at least 2 closers coming from the Phoenix Mercury.
Correct. And not just 2 closers, but dare I say 3 starters?
Right.
Like,
Right.
like that says a lot about this particular team, independent of Olympic basketball. And then naturally, it also says a lot about just the strength of Team USA by having these 3 players at their disposal, at Cheryl Reeve's disposal. The lineups that they're going to be able to make over the course of games to match or to dictate to opponents and put them in a bind, it's going to be fun. And stapled in all of that is going to be those 3 being featured in tandem with each other, independent of each other. But the one thing I feel is going to continue to take a main stage is Diana Taurasi and Brittney Griner in pick and roll. That's something we'll definitely get to a little bit later, with Brittney finally making her season debut in loud fashion over the weekend. But I think that's something that's also going to be a staple with Team USA, because no player in league history, quite honestly, and in world history, knows how to get the ball to Diana better than knows how to get the ball to Brittney better than Diana, and no player knows how to work in two-player play with Diana better than Brittney. And I think that's just going to be an offense in and of itself. It's going to position everybody else for success. It's going to be something that's going to be revisited as a topic and talking point once we get to July.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the roster to be, made official tomorrow. And if that happens, we have some exciting, stuff. But that being said, things are still fluid. The roster was leaked, and it's because of the certain discourse around things. It's a type of thing that Erika won't believe it until she sees it. I need it from Team USA, and then we can all celebrate tomorrow on the PHNX Mercury Twitter account. I'm so excited. So that being said, though, and that's kind of it for my Olympic rant. I could, like I told Stephen, I could go all day about the Olympics right now, but we have got so much time before the Olympics, and we have something even more exciting that actually starts this Thursday that I need to mention, because I actually don't feel like we've mentioned this quite enough on our show yet. But Phoenix is hosting the All-Star game this year. Now, this is super exciting for many reasons. First and foremost, the Mercury probably have 4 or 5 All-Stars easily on this team. And anyone that isn't an All-Star might be on Team USA, which All-Star is going to be the All-Star squad versus Team USA. So that being said, it's going to be like a Mercury versus Mercury showdown in the Footprint Center, which is going to be super exciting. But all of this is coming out of my mouth because voting actually starts this Thursday, and I wanted to get that on y'all's plates as soon as possible, because I do feel as though we have a civic duty to the Phoenix Mercury to get as many of those players on the All-Star squad as possible. Now, listen, they held it down without BG. I know that a few days ago, the Mercury record was 4-6. Now, listen, if you had told us a week before preseason that they were going to play a month and a half of basketball without Brittney Griner and finish it 4-6, I would have said you were lying. So all things considered, they held it down, and I expect the All-Star squad to be loaded with Mercuries.
Yes, it will be, like you said, it's going to be, I think it'll be 5 that they'll eventually get to, just because of the talent that's going to naturally be with Team USA. I think somebody like Rebecca Allen might have an opportunity to be on one of those teams, and same thing with Natasha Cloud, naturally, of course, too. So I can see it, and I also feel like, just generally speaking, it's gonna be a fun time, just with having all, like, with the All Star. Like, All Star is fun, but it also naturally lends itself to certain players being left off because of voting and injury and XYZ. Just the fact that there's going to be so much more opportunity for players that might be less heralded than they should be, to have that opportunity to play on that stage against that team with that atmosphere at that time of the year, I think it's just awesome. A lot of these players don't get the flowers that they deserve, and this is naturally, because of the Olympics, an opportunity to expand that opportunity to players and for more light to be shined on, certain individuals. And I'm certainly looking forward to that part, as well as obviously the teams going up against each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kobe, I don't think they should ban fan voting personally. I think it's a lot of fun and I think it's a really good way to get people invested into their teams. I think when you ask people to select their faves, they have to decide who they don't like too. So, I mean, it's all good discourse surrounding the All-Star game, I think personally. But like Marvin was saying, I do think we need to rock the vote. Like we just named 3 Olympians from the Mercury. I expect at least the other 2 starters to also be present in the All-Star versus Team USA game. Okay?
And you know what I did? I just thought about it. I might have made a mistake and misspoke. That's I believe Rebecca Allen might be playing with Team Australia, so she
No,
might
you
not
are
be able
correct.
to do it. I misspoke. Excuse me. Just in kind of recounting after what I said, I'm thinking like, oh, hold on, she's probably playing with her native team, so she might not be there. But Miss Tosh Cloud will most definitely be. If she wants to, she will certainly be a part of the Team USA or the All Star team this year.
And as Mark said, if we can't vote for Beck, I say we would give all of our votes to Sophie and we have, like I said, a Mercury versus Mercury. I think it would be so fun. And I just know so many of us are going to be in the building that day. It's going to be a real hoot and a holler, if we all know what I'm saying. Now,
Hmm.
um, I feel like we've spoken about the Olympics. We've spoken about All Star now, and we did also have some roster updates with the Phoenix Mercury themselves today. And that is that they waived Morgan Bertsch. And so we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier today, Stephen. But what is your biggest kind of takeaway from them waiving Morgan, and what are you looking for them to do, moving away from Morgan Bertsch?
I'm just curious, and we won't find out until we get a chance to speak with the team, which wouldn't be until Wednesday, because they have those much earned, much deserved, much needed multiple days off. Like we talked about last week, the 5 games in 8 days in 4 different cities, all of that stuff. Having that rest is important, but it just kind of makes it tough when you're getting news like this because you don't have anybody to speak directly to or with about it. I'm curious what the thought process was behind it. If they're just trying to hold the extra roster position for maybe potential free agents that might get cut from other teams. Did they have somebody specific in mind that they're looking to target? That's a free agent at the moment. Like what the initiative behind the transaction is and was. Uh, but nonetheless, it's news, so we got to speak on it. But I'm curious because we don't have a specific answer from the team itself. I'm just curious what kind of went into that and what's the business part of things, and also what's the plan roster wise with that move.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely seen one comment that definitely intrigued me, and it was about Queen Egbo, and I think that that
Hmm.
would be a really interesting get for the Mercury.
Hmm.
So I too am interested to see what they kind of do here. I
Yes.
know that having BG back solves a lot of their problems, but also I think having another big man to come off the bench would be really, really good for this team.
I do too. I'm just curious, also, kind of in alignment with that. If we're looking at particular players, Queen would certainly check off a box for a position of need to just provide depth in case of injury, to give different looks behind BG, all of that fun stuff. I would also be curious though if they were interested in any wings that might potentially be available
Mm.
or might become available, just to have somebody in addition to everything that Diana and Kahleah and Sophie and Rebecca are doing. You can never have enough shooting. Nate wants to get up 35 to 43s a game. So you infuse more shooting with the influx of shooting you already have in house. That could be something that I could certainly see them entertaining as well. Somebody that's positionally versatile on offense and defense. Uh, so that's just kind of why I'm curious, like what the premise behind the move was, to kind of start getting a little more context to the decision that was made.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely going to be a hot topic of conversation on Wednesday. I'm sure of it. That being said, though, again, we did have a pretty exciting weekend as Mercury fans. And so it's kind of time to get into that. We got to start the weekend watching the Mercury take on the Lynx at home. It was kind of a tough, not a tough road trip, but definitely a long road stay where it kind of felt like even their home game against, I want to say it was the Wings last weekend, felt like a road game for them. So it was kind of good for them to get back under their feet a little bit, get to sleep in their own bed for a couple days, and then take on the Lynx on Friday.
Hmm.
And obviously, if you've been on social media, seen Sports Center, anything like that, you know that Kahleah Copper hit absolutely the craziest game closing shot that I think I've ever seen. So, just to get into that game a little bit, I know that you've watched now. What are your biggest takeaways from Brittney Griner's first game back? We also got Beck Allen's, reappearance as a Mercury. What do you think?
Well, I'm actually going to flip the script and I'm going to pass the ball back to you and tell you to run the ISO on this particular topic because you were in person. Not only was it BG's first game, not only did Rebecca Allen return from her injury with the concussion, Kahleah Copper in a game winner. So you got energy around the team pregame, starting lineups get announced. You got their starting front court back in the mix with things. And then you get to the end of the game after them being down at a double-digit deficit coming back in that fourth quarter and Kahleah doing what she does. You got to talk to us. You are a queen vibe check. You queen talk about the vibes. What was the vibe pregame? What was the vibe when the starting lineups got announced? What was the vibe after the game? Talk to us.
Listen, so I drove up to Phoenix on Friday a little bit earlier than I normally would have. I was a little concerned with Friday afternoon traffic, right? So I get there a little bit early and I end up having to sit outside in the hot desert heat for a few 2 minutes long. And needless to say, I was the very first media member to arrive to the game on Friday. And so I'm sitting there in the media room, preparing like my tripod and just getting everything ready to go. And I hear Mr. Nate walk behind me and I hear BG's voice, and they are cackling up a storm walking down this hallway, Stephen. When I tell you, like, I don't think I've ever heard any player laugh that hard, like in a, that close to game time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, pregame vibes were good. And I texted you in that moment and I said, I think that BG's playing. And then a few minutes later, some other media member walks in and he's grinning ear to ear. And I'm like, David, what are you smiling about? Like, what happened outside? He's like, oh, I just can't say. I can't say. I'm like, okay, David, like, and I go on a lot, and then Saul comes and yes, I give him a little bit of a weird handshake. Listen, okay, important people make me nervous. Okay, Mark. And so Saul comes in, he gives me a weird handshake. We go on about our merry way. And that is when Mr. Nate comes in to give us, a game time update, pregame presser. And Nate says that, it's still a game time decision. And I'm like, Nate, we're an hour and a half out. It's game time. Give me the decision. And so I go sit in my seat. I send out my videos. Everyone's loving it. And no one knows what's going on. And I get the email from the Phoenix Mercury that has the starting lineup in it. And the whole media row does an audible gasp. And you could feel the air become crisper in the arena. And in that moment, you could see, BG's down there taking shots on the court and everyone is just having a grand old time. And in that moment, that this team is getting a complete fresh start. And I think that's really unique in a sense for this team at this point in the season. On Friday, they were 4-6 entering the day, and now they're starting over at 500, and they get essentially a fresh start. And obviously, the West is a very competitive conference. But that being said, like they have every opportunity to still come back and win the West if they want to, and you could feel it in the air that this team came out with intention on Friday night and they did not intend to lose the game. I personally think that my biggest takeaway from this game against the Lynx is Nate's guts in showing his willingness to show all of his cards to win the game. I think that Nate has proven over and over again that he's willing to fight for his players and he's willing to fight for the win as much as you can as a head coach. And I think, he drew up the play that gets Kahleah the final shot, but that play was initially drawn up for Diana Taurasi. And for Diana Taurasi to come out and say, no, give the shot to Ka, I think that just goes to show what this team's intentions are, and that's to win. Diana knew my shots aren't going in. Let me give it the ball to someone who's, water is wet for her, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And I think you could feel that energy in the building. You could feel it post game. You could just feel the togetherness that this team is playing with and the love for one another and the willingness to, again, do anything it takes to get the win as a team.
Yep. I think you said all of that extremely well. And that's why I wanted to get your perspective on that game first, because you have a perspective that I just don't on that game, being there in person, like you said, having your feet on the ground, kicking it with Saul the whole game. So that was very descriptive, very detailed from pregame to during the game to post game. Wow.
I wish y'all
uh,
could have heard the laughs I heard in the hallway. In that moment, I was actually mad that I wasn't just like recording a Snapchat by chance because I'm like, I would do anything to have that laugh on Audible for you guys because it was mighty.
Mighty Mercury, huh?
Exactly.
But no, just for me, I actually we can kind of preface it with a conversation I got to have with Nate pregame when before BG's actual return to the lineup was stamped. So if we can kind of roll that clip real quick. Potentially adding Brittney Griner to your context. You kind of spoke to the creativity that you all have had to play with without her, but I was curious, how does she shift or add to everything that you've already established prior to her returning to the floor?
Yeah, you know, BG was here most of the off season, so she's, heard our philosophy offensively and defensively. She hasn't got a lot of reps the last month, but she's going to be willing to space the floor and try to do move around like the way that we've been trying to play, but also we need to let BG be BG. And so I think all great offenses have different options. And we have to take advantage of her strength at times, and that's throw it in the post. And, now Minnesota has, and the rest of the league has to make a decision. Are they going to double her or play her one-on-one? So, that you're going to see some consistency of how we played, but I think you're going to also see some times where we throw it down in the post that we haven't been doing much of through the first 10 games.
So just speaking to that, that's Brittney. She's like I mentioned on our Monday episode from last week. Regardless of what capacity of her game she's going to be at, the fact that she's on the floor in and of itself is just going to shift a whole ton for the team. And you can look at the very first play that they get the ball and win the tip off naturally, and they go to their first possession on offense, and it's a post touch for Brittney Griner on the right block, and she goes from a catch to getting a double team from the baseline from the feet of Kahleah, and she's able to tap into a specific skill set that she displayed ad nauseum last season that she grew in, which was playmaking off of the double teams that she sees in the post. Lets the dust settle on a double team. The defense rotates a little bit. She kicks it to the second side to Kahleah. And guess who's sitting in that opposite corner of Brittney Griner's post touch? Rebecca Allen, wide open, one of the best corner three-point shooters in the W, and she knocks down the three. And that's the tone that's set. That's the shift for this team, where you were able to get away with switching because you didn't have to worry about being punished in the paint, or you just generally didn't have to worry about them going to too many post touches. Insert Brittney Griner, and the way that you defended the Phoenix Mercury even just 7 days ago is not the same. It's not the same at all. And that's just the microcosm of everything that was to come in that game against the Minnesota Lynx. They were consistently able to keep them in rotation defensively in a way that most teams have not been able to this season because they're so able to consistently just switch and not have to really worry about being punished. And we saw that a ton in that game. Brittney had her stamp in multiple moments outside of just scoring. Her screening impact was extremely impactful for this team, just opening teammates off the ball, opening teammates in pick and roll. And then when she was rolling to the basket, whether she got the ball or not, her gravity in that context opened up opportunities for threes. So her impact was felt. And then, defensively, she had a handful of blocks. And when she didn't have blocks, she generally just deterred players from even really looking at the basket. The Minnesota Lynx are known for, like we talked about last week, scoring a high percentage of points from two, like you mentioned. They didn't necessarily get to that clip as comfortably as they would usually do because just the general presence of Brittney, you get past everybody and you're hesitating just because you don't know if you got this weeping willow tree kind of coming behind you to close that airspace. So her impact was felt on both sides of the ball in multiple contexts and everything in their process on both sides. And it was just generally refreshing to see her back on the floor and healthy and happy.
Yeah, I've called today's episode a few times, actually, a spacer special. And there are a few people that don't believe in spacing in basketball. And I just am here to say that if you are a spacer non-believer, go back and watch the Mercury's first game against the Wings and then their second game against the Wings. And I assure you, you will become a spacing believer.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice but to believe in spacing with this Phoenix Mercury team because that's like they space as well as any team in a W, and that's already having only been together for about 7 weeks now. So that says a lot about just how well they've bought into everything that Nate has sold them, and this the chemistry that level that they're at right now. And that particular spacing is something that Brittney Griner even mentioned to me that she feels the difference in. Like obviously no disrespect to any team context that she's been on prior to, but none of those teams have had this compilation of players from position to position to position, even coming off the bench with Sophie in particular, to where she just feels like it's hard to send double teams. If you don't have all of the shooters on the floor, that the Mercury can have in any given lineup, that gives someone an opportunity to send a double team to Brittney off of somebody that they don't respect from deep. They've mitigated a lot of that and put teams in a situation like they said, you got to make a choice. If you don't double Brittney, she's probably scoring 85% of the time or getting to the free throw line, which is a positive either way. And now if you do double team, we talked about her growth as a passer off of the double team she sees, in addition to the spacing, and not just the template of spacing in terms of players being distanced from one another, but the shooting within the spacing that they have. One pass away more often than not is Diana Taurasi or Kahleah Copper. On the second side, Sophie Cunningham, Rebecca Allen, Natasha Cloud. Like there's just so many options that you have to like. You just can't be right. Like that's the
Yeah,
point
and
you're trying to make. You can't be right at all.
yeah, and Brittney Griner actually said it best. You have to respect every one of her teammates, regardless of where they are on the floor. If they can't shoot it from where they are, they can penetrate on you, and that's just the reality of the Phoenix Mercury squad right now. They are deeper today than they were 5 days ago, and it shows in the spacing on the floor.
Indeed, it does. Indeed, it does. And I think that's a perfect time talking about spacing, talking about 3-point shooting, to talk about the one and only the plot of the game, Kahleah Copper. What were your observations of just everything that was Kahleah in that second half, where I believe she scored 24 points, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, I
and
believe
it
you're
grew to the
correct.
comeback? It's kind of speak about what was the energy like with every bucket that she got in that second half, and just the general disposition of her and her teammates after every bucket that she got.
You know, listen, I think that the Phoenix community was really excited when Kahleah, got traded here. But I think with every possession that Kahleah has the ball in her hand, the excitement and the community builds around her tenfold. Like this community has already embraced her so much, and I saw a comment, I don't know who left it early in the chat today that says like, "Do we owe the Chicago Sky anything now? Like, are they sure? Like, do they need a tip or anything? Because I feel like we kind of robbed them." And you can see it in her energy on the court, and the team around her is so thrilled that she is getting her flowers, and I think that speaks so highly to the leadership on this team.
I think it does. And Kahleah is a player that stepped into a position of leadership in the Chicago Sky's 2021 championship run. Naturally, she wasn't the leader because she has so many other veteran players on that roster that they won the championship with 2021. In 2022, she took another step up in that direction. And then in 2023, she ascended to from being one of the leaders to being the leader. And it's something that she talked about, she embraced fully. It's something that she took an onus and held herself to account with from practice and showing up early to setting the tone at practice and the energy that comes with that, and being basically a fire starter for her team. I think naturally her just her general disposition and how she approaches the game and how she values the game puts herself in a perfect position to be a leader, not just in talking, but even more so in her case by doing. and then talking to her, you know what, afterwards, with the prolificity at which she just plays with, it's just galvanizing for everybody. Every time she scores, she's dabbing up with a teammate, if not dabbing up with her coach going into the timeout. And that's literally, I talk about being a fire starter. She is one of the 3 best fire starters in all of basketball. When she scores a bucket, it's not just for herself. That literally infuses energy into everybody else, and we saw that in that comeback against the Minnesota Lynx on Friday. And excuse me, I have written in my notes, it was 25. I undershot her by 1 point. Excuse me. She had 25 in the second half and 14 in the fourth quarter alone. And with every one of those baskets, especially once you start getting to that final 2.5 minutes where she's knocking down multiple threes and getting to the basket for N1s, you could see the energy shifting with her teammates and the belief starting to rise. At no point in that game did she think they were out. She could literally put the team on her back. And she said, "We are not done with this game. This game is not over with yet. I have a couple more things to say with this." And she let her game speak. And then she talked her talk leading to every timeout and into the final buzzer after that.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway from that game in regards to Kahleah Copper is that she can turn tunnel vision on. It's her and the hoop on the court sometimes, and if she needs to put the team on her back, she can turn the tunnel vision on, and the ball's going in.
Yep. And the thing that really, really stood out to me, like you said, this positive tunnel vision, she has it. When she gets into that proverbial zone, or if you're a little bit more to the mental philosophic side of things, that flow state that athletes get into when they're in that zone, she was in that entire second half. She scored, like, for me, what stood out most, she scored in every single context of play. Pick and roll, off the ball, running off of screens, in transition, coming off of dribble handoffs, out of the post, from 3-point range, off the dribble, catch and shoot. She did it like literally everything. And it was just a very, very special experience to see. I hope that X Factor, like, I can tell based off of the energy exchanges between her and the fans, they're certainly already embracing her in a way that they didn't before she was wearing the Mercury jersey. And they've already seen through the first 12 games, a few at home, they've already seen some very, very special performances from Kahleah Copper. MVP caliber, best player in the W caliber styles of play that
You
she's
tell him, Stephen.
with timeliness. I tried to warn y'all on our first episode. I think y'all had an idea from the 2021 championship round. And when she's come to Phoenix anytime as a visitor since that, with the energy it was given to her, which was very unwelcoming. And I knew that upon her first game preseason and then going onward that she would grow to be loved just because of the heart charging style of play and her always win mentality. I feel like there's a natural relationship developed there. And we're already starting to see her really play off of the crowd and the crowd really buy into her as well. The same.
Yeah, absolutely. Another key thing I think about the Lynx win is holding Kahleah McBride to 1 for 4 from 3 in that fourth quarter is the only reason that they won. Kahleah McBride was 7 for 9 from 3 in the first 3 quarters. Like, that's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Kahleah is a killer, an absolute killer that can punch out of her proverbial weight class in terms of her role at the drop of a hat. She does it consistently. She is such a gamer. I think I tweeted it during the game. The Kahleah McBride, she's just such a gamer. She has a great sense for the moment, and she knows how to play off of the attention that other players garner. To the extent that you think you would, like, if you didn't know anything about the W, the way she played in that game, you would think she was like top 10, top 15.
Right,
She's not
right.
quite that, but in specific moments in games, she knows how to rise to the occasion. It's performances like that I feel like we talked about earlier in the season with the addition of Rebecca Allen. She won't have the loudest box score, but she's gonna come up with timely plays that are gonna really hit like heavyweight right hand jabs to the abdomen section, to the point where it's gonna be something that teams are not accounting for in terms of what they're trying to take away. And that's gonna give the liberty. It's gonna give it's gonna give the Mercury opportunities to really put teams away, especially late in games and as games grow more meaningful. That's a template. They're the same styles of players in terms of bringing that value to their teams. And she's just one heck of a basketball player.
She absolutely is. Now listen, moving on from the Lynx a little bit to the Wings. I think on Friday we thought we had seen a really great performance from Brittney Griner, right? But then we come out on Sunday and we get what we got from BG. And you're sitting there like, are you sure you haven't played basketball in a month and a half? Like, are you sure? So just to keep it a buck, again, a double overtime win. I don't like free basketball when it comes with the Mercury, but it's okay. We'll take the dub. That being said, though, in 50 minutes, they held Erika Kahleah to only 25 points, which after the Dallas Wings visited the Phoenix Mercury just a few short weeks ago and dropped 40 from Erika, I think that the 25 is a sentiment that I will pass along to you guys is she gonna get hers. And that's really it when it comes to Erika. When you looked at her shot selection on Sunday, every shot she took was difficult. The Mercury were making things extremely hard for her. So that being said, this defense with Brittney Griner, again, completely different than the defense was a week ago. And I think that you really got to see that come to fruition against the Wings on Sunday.
Yes, you certainly did. And I mean, first of all, sometimes, as we've seen with Kahleah Copper, as we've seen with Diana Taurasi her entire career, as we've seen with Brittney Griner her entire career, sometimes it just simply does not matter what you're doing, what your coverage is, what your personnel is, what the time and score is, what hand and direction you're sending them to. Sometimes great players just trump great defense. Erika Ogunbowale, a special shot maker and an even more special tough shot maker. Like there's like the first play I'm thinking about, she comes off a screen from one of her teammates, it's probably Tierra McCowan. And it's on the wing, on the left wing, going towards the sideline, from the middle of the floor, towards the sideline. Kahleah Copper is stuck to the hip, right where she's supposed to be. Rebecca Allen helps off of the strong corner, something you don't typically do, but when it's Erika Ogunbowale that has the ball in her hands, you want to try to take away that airspace and not let her feel comfortable. Also, talk about the collective wingspan between Kahleah Copper and Rebecca Allen. Erika literally does not care. Pulls up. There's at least a few more seconds left on the shot clock. She just does not care. She doesn't care about either one of the contests. There's two contests in her face, one for each eye, and it just does not matter. And when the ball comes down, it barely even touches the net, let alone the rim. Like,
listen, I got something to say about Erika.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
If you guys want to be mad about any player being snubbed from Team USA, we can say it's Erika Ogunbowale. Okay, let's all agree now, and that she is a walking bucket. Okay, like again, it doesn't matter what defense you're playing on her, ice cold in her veins.
Yeah, and that she's just special. She's special. I just had to make sure we preface anything else we're talking about with that. That being said, we talk about Kahleah Copper stealing the weekend. The defense that she played on Erika Ogunbowale, and in addition to her individual defense, when she ended up getting switched and it ended up being Natasha Cloud Gardner or Rebecca Allen Gardner, the collective efforts that those three players in particular put together to just stifle and make things as uncomfortable as they possibly could with her, exceptional. Extreme difference from the display of energy that they showed in that game that took place 2 weeks ago when Erika came into footprint and dropped 40. They said she was not going to have fun in this game. She had moments where she might have had the slightest bit of fun, but it didn't come with her not expending dubious amounts of energy to get those buckets to go down. And that's what you want. If somebody's going to score on you, especially someone as prolific as Erika can be, one bucket could turn a microwave on and it could last the rest of the game. You want to make it as tough as you possibly can and take away at her legs by making her work. That's exactly what they did. And if she happened to be able to get into the paint, unlike last time, we talked about her knocking down threes, she also had a handful of drives. Last time, Natasha Mack did a decent job, but Natasha just doesn't have the stature and she isn't the type of threat in terms of rim protection that Brittney Griner is. So Erika is like, okay, I could drive past her, but if I drive past her, I got to figure out how I'm gonna get a shot up over this weeping willow tree that's hanging out inside the paint. In addition to Kahleah Copper not getting screened most of the time, so she's still attached to my hip. So it's like, where's the win for me? So naturally, within that, we saw Erika compile 10 assists and get a double-double. Shout out to her for that because she was not forcing shots to the extent that she might have in seasons past, really speaking to her growth and her playing off of the attention that she's garnered. She put her teammates in great positions to score. Maddie Seager saw a lot of those opportunities. So shout out to her and the team for that. But the Mercury really executed their defensive scheme, whether they were switching in stretches of the game, trying to funnel her to specific sides of the floor and different pockets of the floor based off of whatever actions they might have been trying to run. They did a great job, and at the helm of a lot of that was Kahleah Copper. And I want to preface everything we talk about with Kahleah, with her defensive efforts, because to see what she was able to do offensively in that game, scoring 32 points, a team high, and knocking down 4 threes and getting to the free throw line 7 times, to do that in addition to guarding the best player on the floor for the opposing team for pretty much every minute that she was on the floor, excluding when they switched. That just speaks to the level of play that she's at this season. MVP level. I can't name 3 players that are playing better basketball comprehensively than Kahleah Copper right now. And that certainly includes the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely, yeah. In my notes for today, I have that Kahleah Copper is a complete game changer, and she elevates this team from good to contenders. And I think that is something that we haven't really gotten to see up until Brittney Griner has been back with the team. You know, this team is good without BG, good without Ka, but when you add all of the pieces that this team has, you know, like I said, it took this team to a contending place.
Yes. And I see a comment from Chantel. Shout out Chantel. She's always asking really great questions that just add more to the show. So we appreciate you, Chantel. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if y'all like what we're doing here. Yes, Kahleah did. It wasn't specific to the Mercury. They had to kind of scour the league when she demanded her trade from the Chicago Sky to see who could facilitate a trade that would suffice the Sky, but also would suffice Kahleah. They wanted to do right by Kahleah. And they also naturally wanted to do right by themselves in terms of compensation for a player that can be top 5 at any given moment in the season. That's a former Finals MVP. So upon that list, I think at the top of that was the Phoenix Mercury. Context-wise, with the players that they had on the roster, I think appealed to her, but also with the team having its own facilities and how they were catering to their players and showing a certain level of investment in the players that would make her feel a lot more comfortable than she has at any point in her career, which she's spoken to a handful of times already. I think all of those things mattered. And she naturally, obviously, in addition to everything else, wanted to win now. And you have Diana Taurasi and Brittney Griner on your team. You're certainly in win now mode. You add an owner like Matt Ishbia to your team that's spending the money that he's spending. You want to win now. You go out in free agency and you add Natasha Cloud and Rebecca Allen, in addition to already having Sophie Cunningham. Those are all win now moves, checkbox by checkbox by checkbox. I think all of those things directly align with Kahleah and a competitive fervor, and the team just generally wanted her to be herself and dynamic, all matched up in terms of a marriage. Made for a perfect fit for Kahleah. We're already seeing the results in that. So yes, Phoenix was the team, probably the top team that she wanted to go to. They granted her wishes on that. They were able to facilitate the trade. And here we are talking about her being arguably the MVP through the first 12 games for the Phoenix Mercury. Did you have anything else you wanted to add as far as that goes?
No, I actually just wanted to get to that clip that you had with where you talked to Kahleah kind of about her improvement this year and just kind of what she's done, like I said, to get to that place that she's playing at an MVP caliber level.
So you've been off to a career best pace in terms of your rhythm from deep. I was curious if you could speak to the space that you're in and just kind of what has gone into your training for you to have seen such a shift early this season.
Shout out to Nate. Don't tell him, y'all. He's just done a good job with helping me understand my shot selection and what's efficient and what's really good for me. Shout out to Preston too. But I really bought into, how he wants me to play. And I think that also putting in the work also translates. So just shout out to them, and then me just putting in the work in the gym and then getting on the court.
Big shout out to you. What? Come on now.
They were in such a funny mood after this weekend, right?
They were. I mean, you get your team back healthy and, you see a team that was already as competitive as any other, not just be competitive, but also be genuinely and thoroughly happy. with the pieces that they have in terms of the players on the roster. You see, like, these players really, really genuinely like and care for each other and like spending time with each other, to the extent that, like you talked about, you see Nate and and BG laughing in the tunnel behind closed doors before they get to the business. Work starts to seem a lot less like work when you enjoy the people that you're doing work with, and you just 40 games, the traveling issues, the all of the things that come with that can be tumultuous. It can become extremely mundane. And one of the best ways to break up the mundaneness that comes with any type of regular season marathon is to enjoy the people that you're working with. If it doesn't seem like work, like it doesn't seem like work when I'm working with Erika right now. It's fun. That's quite literally what it seems like with the Phoenix Mercury players, from the front office to the players that are actually on the roster and everywhere else in between. That's how you get to this level that they're at right now, and they're starting to already turn the corner while still laying a foundation for the team that they desire to be with BG back in the mix. And kind of to bring things back to Kahleah Copper, if we could get that graphic up of the level of play that Kahleah has been at this season. So at 24 points per game this season is third in the W right now. And if you just kind of look at the other numbers, she's just off to such an amazing start this season. She's league tops, or at the top third, the top three players in the league with 3-pointers made this season. The same goes with that 7.4 3-point attempts per game, and that the 39.3% from deep ranks 19th. But that volume of 3-point shooting that she's at this season right now is elite. And the fact that she's able to marry that volume of 3-point shooting with an efficiency level that's almost 40% really just speaks to her being like the level of 3-level scorer that she is. I think after a career best season last year, she entered that realm of not just having the ability to score in the mid range and score at the basket whenever she wanted to. She really started to focus and hone in on her skills from deep. And I think she's just added that much more to her bag, in addition to the context being better for her to be the best version of herself that we've seen so far coming into this season with the Phoenix Mercury. Everything that Nate Tibbetts has added to just for her to play in terms of her role within the offense, playing off of movement, being on the second side of actions with Diana Taurasi and Brittney Griner working in actions, and just everywhere else in between. She couldn't be in a better context in terms of the pieces around her as well as the system that she's playing in. And I think it's matched with the perfect time of her being at the peak of her superpowers right now and being in full control of her game.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty excited to kind of watch how this season, plays out late for her. I think when you have a player like Kahleah that is a clutch player, they're only going to get better throughout the season. And we've talked about it ad nauseum now. The All-Star and Olympic break is going to do nothing but help her as well. So I'm very, very excited for this. I don't want to, count my ducks before they're hatched, but I'm ready for All-Star to be over so we can get to the good stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I would just like to add one more quick note with Kahleah. For people that are new to the Kahleah Copper experience, first of all, welcome. I hope you're enjoying your stay. She's a player that's won in grand fashion the last handful of seasons of her career. She's ascended from being a role player to being top level player to being the top dog on the team that's a playoff team to now being one of the top dogs in addition to a few other dogs on the team with the Phoenix Mercury. That's just in this Western hemisphere of the world. She's won, obviously, she's got a championship, she's got a finals MVP. In that same calendar year, she went from winning that finals MVP and then winning a championship to also winning an MVP in EuroLeague a couple of months after that. That type of triple crown is rare. And I think that naturally seeing her game evolve to now she's being on Team USA, she's gonna start seeing some of those same type of levels of success. And I think that that's gonna be something like she's a player that thrives off of winning, to where it's gonna start to spiral into something that's building this monster that teams are gonna have a tough time dealing with. And I think her spending time with all the greatness is gonna come with Team USA, and the winning is naturally gonna come with that. And she comes back from the Olympic break, it's gonna be something special, and I'm excited for everybody that hasn't spent a season or two watching Kahleah to get this experience. As the games grow more meaningful, the capital and the bold of the D and her dog is just gonna grow that much more emphatic, and it's gonna be something that's gonna be an experience that I think a lot of you will probably start to kind of see some similarities in terms of that dog that you saw in Diana over the course of her career. They're cut from that same type of cloth, and their care factor in terms of winning and doing things the right way is there. And I think there couldn't be a better player across the league to share that kindred spirit level of energy with Diana than Kahleah.
Yeah, and listen, Saint Shitbag said it better than I could ever. Ka for MVP. I've been yapping about it for like weeks on Twitter now, but like for real, like get the ballots ready, okay? Ka for MVP. And yeah, I can't express enough to you, Ka for MVP. Best 199 ever spent, Saint Shitbag.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Listen, now I know what you're thinking to yourself right now. Erika, Stephen, how the hell do I get to see Kahleah Copper in person? Now, what if I told you we have an opportunity for you to do just that this coming Thursday, June 13th? Now, listen, I already have mentioned this date in regard to All-Star voting. So when we're sitting there, we're having our little pregame beverage and meal, we can all sit together and log onto our phones and vote for All-Star all together at the same time. So really, the antes for this event just keep being upped. Plus, I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but I give a pretty stellar handshake, and you cannot miss this. You must get the handshake. So get your tickets. There's only a few left. I think the last time I heard less than a handful. So please get your tickets now. I will be there. Stephen will be there. My mini-me will be there. I mean, basically everyone that's important in regards to PHNX is going to be there, aka Saul. So be there or be square. I'm pretty excited. I've been yapping about it. The whole PR team from the Mercury knows that we're coming. Like everyone is excited to have us.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I'm hoping to see everybody that's in the chat right now there to kick it with us for that game. And anybody else that might not be in the chat but supports us, we appreciate y'all. This is opportunities for us to continue to build community here with PHNX Sports, and that level of community and building like a culture. Talked about it last episode, how important that is to me. I think these opportunities are unique across any other medium that other outlets might have. It's something that makes ALLCITY Network something just generally unique. You got to take advantage of these opportunities. They don't come too often, and when they do, and you have the people that we have in place here, it's just a fun time. I just would love to see everybody with those opportunities.
Listen here, Mark. You think I don't know that you're Bread Bowl, but I know that you're Bread Bowl, and I am just so thrilled that you gave $2 to Stephen. Okay, Bread Bowl. And just for that, you're getting 2 handshakes on Thursday. So watch it.
We appreciate you, Mark. Gratitude for that. But yes, take advantage of these takeover opportunities. These are very unique, and these are opportunities to just continue to, like I said, just integrate yourself with the community. Get to watch a game with other people that you're spending time speaking online with. You just can't beat it. You really can't beat it.
Yeah, Bread, are you mourning anything right now? Are you doing okay, Bread? Anyways, all that being said, we've talked a lot now. We've talked at nauseum about what you can expect from this team on Thursday. Likely a lot of spacing if I were to be a betting man. So that being said, I expect to see all of you there on Thursday. And then the following, Shane, I don't know if the graphic is ready for us, but trivia night, that's also the following Thursday, if I do recall. And I am actually being bullied into attending the trivia. So if you want something that you can beat me at, attend the trivia because I will lose. So be there, be square. Basically, what I'm telling you is go to gophnx.com and get your tickets to everything important, which would start with this coming Thursday. That being said, Stephen, where can they find you?
Yeah. You all can find me on Twitter at StayTrueS.3. You can also find me on my YouTube page, Stephen Prejean Garner 3, posting interactions with players and coaches from all the teams that I cover, as well as doing film sessions on many different things that catch my eye on the court, whether it be scheme stuff, whether it be trend stuff, skill development stuff with players. We'll definitely have more content coming out prior to seeing you all hopefully on Thursday at Footprint. A lot of stuff to talk about with Brittney Griner, how she's being used, the defense from her, how it impacts things. Kahleah Copper, Diana Taurasi continuing to knock down threes and playing pick and roll with Brittney Griner is special. The defense that they played as a team on Erika and Stephen, I think is a template for them against other special guards that play for opposing teams. A lot to talk about. So you'll be seeing some content from me on Twitter as well as on my YouTube page, and then in the writing format as well over these next couple of days while the team is enjoying some time down and some time off, which is much deserved and much needed.
Absolutely. And if you don't already follow the PHNX_Mercury on Twitter, you're absolutely missing out. I have to hand it to myself. I think I had some pretty funny tweets about the Mercury this weekend. So, like I said, you guys are really
Yes.
missing out.
Yes.
You know, Stephen found this picture of Kahleah saying that she used to call herself the female Jordan. And so if you haven't seen that, head over there right now and you can see that.
In full context, I think I told you and Saul that was sitting in my my photo gallery since it happened. It was like I forgot what event it was, something that happened prior to the 2023 W season. It was like a red carpet type event. You can see based off of Kai's attire. And somebody asked her, it was something I think Jordan related, and that's where the quote came from. She's a bomb quote. I don't think people really have quite understood it. You'll see it in time when there's a little looser of situations that she's gonna be spoken to in. But yes, Kai is fun, and that little meme was perfectly timed too.
Yes, absolutely. Like Chris said, get your Die Hard membership so that you can, have the most fun with us. All that being said, though, we've done great work today. Housekeeping, we won't be back until next Monday, but that being said, you guys can all see us on Thursday. So follow us on Twitter. But until then, thanks for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.